What is surprisingly not bulls? During the Cold War, the CIA had a plan to get rid of Castro by spreading rumors that he was the Antichrist, then fake the second coming off the coast of Cuba. The plan was that a US submarine would make its way towards Havana and fire star shells into the air. They then would use a US military plane hidden in the clouds with a loudspeaker, and somebody would pretend to be Jesus while urging the population to denounce communism and overthrow the regime. Other such plans included lacing Castro's radio studio with LSD to cause his disorientation during the broadcast, and using thallium to cause his beard to fall out, both to destroy his public image. The US Navy's combat dolphins are serious military assets, to the tune of $14 million in funding a year, and has the Pentagon's financial backing through the year 2020. I had to look this up and found out the Navy is not only training dolphins but also sea lions. LOL. The fax machine was patented in 1843. One day I came home from work and there was this little white box sitting on the counter. I asked my wife, "What is this thing?" She said, "It's a box that emits a high-pitched sound that only cats can hear and it will keep Spike off the counters." Me, "How much did you pay for this magic box?" Wife, "It was $50. Me, $50 for a magic fricking box that's not going to fricking work? Can you return it? Wife, "Let's just see if it works and I'll return it if it doesn't." I ate my fricking words. This was 10 years ago, and my cat got up on the counter one time after we got the box and then never again. The box doesn't even work anymore. I think it's not even plugged in anyway. Still, the cat won't go near it. So sorry. Crocodiles actually have no lifespan. If they lived in a perfectly suited environment with no predators, diseases, etc., they would live forever. It's a process called negligible senescence. Interestingly enough, from what I read, the reason, outside of disease, most crocs eventually die is because they never stop growing as they age. This in itself isn't an issue. The problem is larger bodies need more food, and eventually they can no longer find enough food to sustain their size and die of starvation. Nausea can sometimes be fixed by moving your head through a set of positions to readjust the crystals in your inner ear. Gotta admit, if my doctor told me my crystals need realigning, I'd wonder how many cereal box tops his diploma cost. Craftsman tools lifetime warranty. I found a really old Craftsman socket wrench in my dad's tools and he told me about the warranty. Since the switch on it was broke, he sent it to them. Got a brand new one. Only hand tools though. Anything with an engine or motor and Craftsman is like, screw you pal. Algae and phytoplankton actually produce most of the world's oxygen, about 70% on average, not trees like most people assume and were taught. Guys, trees are still important, don't freak out. Febreze. It actually traps odors as advertised by a fascinating, at least to me, as a chemist, mechanism, but there's no way to say that without sounding like a commercial. The original Febreze didn't have a scent and that caused it to fail despite working. When Mt. Everest was first measured, it was exactly 29,000 featuring. Since the scientists assumed that most people would call bulls on their measurements, they actually wrongly added a couple feet. During World War II, the US Navy had serious plans on using incendiary bat bombs against major Japanese cities. Hundreds of thousands of bats were planned to be dropped from airplanes above Japanese cities during early morning. As bats are nocturnal, they would hide among the wooden houses and buildings permeating the cities. The bats were armed with timed bombs, which would explode and turn entire cities into infernos. As history shows, there were no bat-induced infernos in Japan. The project had ended prematurely. They did, however, capture, experiment and put bombs on thousands of bats, which was an exceedingly slow process. At one point, one bat escaped and nearly burned the entire base down. The project was eventually scrapped because it was taking too long to finish and the Manhattan Project was coming to fruition. I read a book when I was younger on this. It was a trilogy where the main protagonists were bats and they were abducted and used as bombs. It was called Silverwing for the first book and Sunwing for the third, if I recall correctly. Awesome books. During the 1980s, The Naval Investigative Service was investigating homosexuality in Chicago. They misunderstood the phrase "friend of Dorothy" and launched a massive search for the elusive Dorothy, whom they thought was a real woman at the center of a massive ring of homosexual service members. Massive ring of homosexual service members. Tee. Nikola Tesla was in love with a pigeon. He wrote about her, "I love that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life." He also hated fat people fiercely, but hey, if you're fat you can still be like, "At least I don't frick with no pigeons." Frickin' Skyrat Diddler. Oxford University predates the Aztec Empire by at least 250 years. Oxford definitely existed in 1167. 261 years before the Aztec Empire rose in 1428. But records exist of teaching happening at Oxford University as far back as 1096, a full 330 years before the Aztec Empire. Those survey websites where they're like complete X offers and winner freezes. There are full communities of people who trade offers with each other and all will pay you a portion of the split price to do an offer. AKA if the value of the prize is $500 and you need 10 credits, $50 credit, they will pay you $35 per credit to help them win the prize. I used to do offers for people in college for some extra spending cash. One of an octopus tentacles is actually a penis and can detach it and throw it at its mate, where she can inseminate herself. Here, go frick yourself. More than 80% of the human population think they are smarter than the average population. Only 6% of African slaves were brought to North America. The other 94% ended up in South America and the Caribbean. One of the reasons for this is that conditions in SA and the Caribbean led to many more deaths and the importation of replacement workers. The late chemist Alexander Shulgin was paid by the D to legally synthesize and then trip on just about every psychedelic that we know of. And many we didn't know of till he synthesized them. He literally wrote the book on psychedelics, which was then used to make most of those illegal. Lockheed Martin bought titanium from the Soviet Union to build the SR-71, which primarily flew reconnaissance over the Soviet Union. The soil on Prince Edward Island in Canada is actually really quite bright brick red. It's very weird to see. I heard about it, but then to see it, it's quite a shock how bright it is. Apparently due to the very high iron content in the soil. If you start the month with $1 and double it every day, you'd be a billionaire by the end of that month. The power of exponential growth. Not if that month's February. Stop spreading misinformation. One of my favorite is about the number of unique orders for cards in a standard 52 card deck. I've seen a really good explanation of how big 52 actually is. Set a timer to count down 52 seconds. That's 8.0658 times 10 to the power of 67 seconds. Stand on the equator and take a step forward every billion years. When you've circled the earth once, take a drop of water from the Pacific Ocean and keep going. When the Pacific Ocean is empty, lay a sheet of paper down, refill the ocean and carry on. When your stack of paper reaches the sun, take a look at the timer, the 3 leftmost digits won't have changed. 8.063 times 10 to the power of 67 seconds left to go. You have to repeat the whole process 1000 times to get 1/3 of the way through that time. 5.385 times 10 to the power of 67 seconds left to go. So to kill that time you try something else. Shuffle a deck of cards. Deal yourself 5 cards every billion years. Each time you get a royal flush. Buy a lottery ticket. Each time that ticket wins the jackpot. Throw a grain of sand in the Grand Canyon. When the Grand Canyon's full, take 1 ounce of rock off Mount Everest. Empty the canyon and carry on. When Everest has been leveled, check the timer. There's barely any change. 5.364 times 10 to the power of 67 seconds left. You'd have to repeat this process 256 times to have run out the timer. In the Cold War, the US had plans to drop magnum-size condoms labeled as regular on Russia to demoralize the population. Operation Frank Reynolds. That in Florida, if you leave a child under the age of 6 years old unattended in a running vehicle for any length of time, that it is a criminal offense. But if you turn the vehicle off then you get 15 minutes before it is an offense. I'm guessing it's because the kid can put the car into gear and take off, and 6-year-olds are not known for their driving skills. I sort of meant this thread is what looks like a scam but actually works, not what is a cool fact. My fault for the wording, I guess, but I didn't mean to give you guys another one of these threads. Sorry dudes, I failed you. That's what I thought, dang. And I was interested too. These are like 90% the same facts from a post from yesterday. All of physics that has been figured out since 1905. Before that it was one thing hit another and moves, or electricity must go in a circle. After that it's like all things are part wave, you are made out of the same energy as light and time isn't constant. The combined mass of all ants on Earth is greater than the combined mass of all humans on Earth. Ranks and Chevron. The automotive world is full of snake oil and bulls gimmicks that promise every sort of thing in the world, but these two products stand alone as not being bulls. Ranks will make your life behind the wheel 100% better in rain and wet snow. It increase visibility 80% easy by allowing water to bead up and roll off your windshield, rather than creating a flat wet screen. Firebrand wipers are crap though. And as for Chevron, well, it really does do what they claim. It will help clean carbon buildup and deposits in your combustion chamber, valves, spark plugs. Only brand that honestly works. Use once every few oil changes. Lucid dreaming. It's true, scientifically proven, and everyone can learn to do it, even though it might sound like some new age BS at first. I think part of the initial skepticism is that most resources for learning how to induce lucid dreams are on new age BS websites. A broken clock. Operation Northwoods. DoD had plans to commit false flag terrorist attacks against Americans and then blame it on Cuba in hopes of drawing support for war. When the pyramids were built, the woolly mammoths still existed. That wives in India really do pack lunches for other people and then transport them all over the place so every worker has a meal for lunch, rather than simply preparing the same meal and handing it to their husband. They have an incredibly well thought out and efficient system for an incredibly poorly thought out and inefficient concept. An Alsatian and a German Shepherd are the same thing. In World War II the British didn't think having a German Shepherd at Crufts would be a good idea, so they fixed it. There has never been a proven case of kids being poisoned at random by Halloween candy or someone intentionally putting foreign objects in Halloween candy. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.